So Ukraine just bagged at least dozens, maybe more than that, maybe upwards of hundreds, and I'm going to say dozens only to be conservative, of Russian soldiers who were encircled. I'll talk about that big story after I talk about this, because this would have been the big story if there wasn't an even bigger story in the encircled Russians. Okay, Ukrainian forces conducted a long-range operation against Russian military industrial facilities in Chelyabinsk, Russia. The city is more than 1,800 kilometers. Somebody corrected me yesterday and told me it was kilometers, not kilometers. That's how I'm supposed to say it. From the Ukrainian border. If that's incorrect, tell me in the comments below. I try to read the comments as much as I can. From the Ukrainian border. Okay, so we know that it happened here, but was it a drone strike or was it something else? The first official Russian comment on the explosion at a military plant there. An explosion occurred at a plant in the city of Kyiv. Unfortunately, there have been casualties. All emergency services have arrived at the scenes. Headquarters has been established. That's all that they put out initially. Russia says at least now 12 are dead at this munitions plant. The factory produced artillery shells, missile warheads, and a variety of other explosives. So it was targeted by the Ukrainian forces last night. Okay, then if that wasn't the big story, this certainly would have been the big story. Ryazan oil refinery burning as a result of tonight's attack. Some sources claim Peklo missiles were used for the attack. Okay, let's look a little bit deeper. The series of explosions at Ryazan overnight with drones targeting the local oil refinery and Diaghilevo air base, but I don't see anything about the air base. So there's nothing in my feed that telling me that the air base was actually hit. But the oil refineries, I mean, either way, either one would have been a legitimate hit. A massive blaze broke out near the catalytic cracking or hydrocracking unit, part of the refinery producing 12 to 13 million tons annually. Okay. Footage analysis by Dnipro Osint confirms that Ukrainian forces struck this oil refinery, hitting the AVT2 crude processing unit, and the refinery's annual output again is 12 to 13 million tons. After earlier drone strikes in August, it operated at half capacity. This time, it may be finished off. So we might not be hearing about Ryazan oil refinery again in the future if they did their job. Right? And now part of this is that the payload that the Ukrainians can put on their drones and missiles is not as big as like a Tomahawk or something along those lines. So they have to hit it a few times, but the defenses don't seem to be really very robust around these oil refineries. Locals reported 10 explosions around 3:15 a.m. This is the sixth attack since January at Ryazan oil refinery. So they seem pretty determined to take it on. Now, this refinery seen burning here was just sanctioned by the U.S. yesterday. Well, we'll talk more about the sanctions later on. By the way, if you want to know what happened with that sanctions package, hit subscribe. I'll be back later on today to talk about that. Okay, during the night of October 22nd, 23rd, Russia launched 130 attack drones. Ukrainian air defenses shot down or jammed 92 of them over the north and east. Strikes were recorded at least 11 sites. What's important about this is these are all drones, right? I'm going to show you why that's important in just a moment. Okay, Russians attacked Kyiv last night with Shahed. Look how low that they were flying. At least 7 people were injured. But I want you to hear it. That's what it sounds like. There you go. Do you see it in the sky? There's not going to be an explosion, so you don't need to brace yourself. But I just want you to hear what it looks like, and you can see it right here. There you go. All right, let me turn that off. 2 unexploded Shahed drones crashed into an apartment buildings in Kyiv's districts last night. Police bomb squads safely removed them for disposal. The number of injured and drone attacks has risen from the drone attacks has risen to 9. Imagine this landing in your kitchen, because that's what this looks like here. Wow. Okay, in Kramatorsk, Donetsk region, Russian Lancet drone killed 2 media workers. Journalist Olena Hubunova from the TV channel Freedom and cameraman Yevgen Karmazin. I want to get that right. And yeah, they're targeting journalists just like anyone else. I mean, the Russians are indiscriminate. They'll target journalists, they'll target civilians, they'll target a kindergarten, as we saw yesterday. Gray-haired man in a civilian coat runs into flames at Kharkiv kindergarten hit by Russian drones yesterday, emerges with child. You can see the pink pants and slippers visible under the jacket and goes back in. Two journalists recognize him, though. Why? Because his name was Alexander Volobiev, 67, a major general of civilian protection, made multiple trips into burning building with 48 children inside. So, and like, if you think that this was unintentional, like, oh, you know, the Russians really didn't mean to do this. A drone just went off course. There were 3 drones. It was actually a double tap. So it's to be confirmed that not only did the Russians send a missile into a kindergarten, I believe it was drones. They tried to double tap it with a second strike to maximize the deaths of the children. You can see the second drone in the second video. They knew exactly what they were doing. They did. They knew what they were doing when they hit this kindergarten. Russian troops also executed 5 civilians in Donetsk just a couple of days ago. A couple and their 2 sons were hiding from the shelling when Russian soldiers stormed in, demanded information about Ukrainian forces. After receiving no answers, one soldier shot the unarmed civilians, killing the father and the elder son instantly. Then the younger son and 2 neighbors nearby were also killed. The wounded mother escaped to Ukrainian-controlled territory. The Russians don't seem to have any compunction about doing this sort of thing. This is a war crime, clearly a war crime. Let's look at what's going on the battlefield. Now we'll get to the big story, which is, well, I'm going to set up the big story, so give me just a moment. 920 Russians off the battlefield, a little lower than the average. 2 tanks, 6 armored fighting vehicles, 24 artillery systems. And then when we see this over here, cruise missiles, I don't normally highlight this, 10 cruise missiles. But wait a minute. Didn't we just say just a little bit ago that there were all drones here? Like it was all drones last night? Yeah, because there's a little bit of a lag between what we're seeing here and what we're seeing overnight. 10 cruise missiles and then 106 vehicles and fuel tanks. So these numbers have a bit of a lag to them sometimes. Okay, what happened last night is not the same as what happened the other day. And so you saw that 10 on here, the 10 cruise missiles, that's explained by this. Shot down last night, shot down or suppressed 333 of 405 drones and 16 of 28 missiles, which means at least 10 of these missiles got through or were on here as shot down. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Cross direction, Russian invaders conducted about 40 assaults. That sounds about right. And the big story is right around Pokrovsk. So let me set the table here before we actually see the Russians surrender. Unmanned systems forces, destroyed enemy armored vehicles and personnel. Among targets hit by the Flying Skull unit, this is just by one unit, is 153 enemy personnel, 7 tanks, 18 armored vehicles, 69 motorcycles, and military buggies. I just don't understand the motorcycles and military buggies. Nemesis, bombarding Russian military targets. They can bombard them at night. They can bombard them during the day. They can see what's going on. So like if we're looking at this, right? I mean, you can see, right? So that makes this even more amazing. Ukrainian military evacuate civilians from the combat zone. They're hustling these guys into a cope cage covered armored vehicle and trying to get them out of there as quickly as they can. So that's them hustling them. And then under Russian fire and maneuvering through mines on a street in Pokrovsk, a Max Pro driver from Ukraine's 68th Separate Jaeger Brigade took a major risk to evacuate civilian wounded by a Russian drone. So they're trying to get, like, nobody's being hit here. Those things are going off around him, but he's like, so to do that with drone coverage is really crazy. Okay, this is the big story. It's visually confirmed that Ukrainian forces liberated Kucherev Yar in the Donetsk region. By the way, Yar in Ukrainian, you pick this kind of thing up. Yar means a ravine or a gully or a steep bank. So there's a lot of places like Chasev Yar and Babin Yar and other name with that Yar. Okay, Ukraine most certainly eliminating the Russian encirclement in this area. What area are we talking about? This is the top of the bunny ears. Remember the bunny ears? That's no longer encircled. It's now Ukrainian held territory. And here's the race. They raised their hands, white flags, and went into captivity in packs in the Dobropilia direction. More than 50 Russians were captured. This was made possible thanks to the liberation of the settlement. Okay, so here they are surrendering. And you can see this, the drone footage. They're coming out. They have their white flags, trying not to die, right? Okay, so now one source is saying 50. Another source is saying hundreds of Russian soldiers surrendered in the Kucherev Yar pocket in the Donetsk region of Pokrovsk. I don't know which is accurate. So we're going to say dozens in order to be conservative rather than overstate the case, but it could be far more than that. We just don't know. The fog of war, right? Okay, reconnaissance of a multi-story building from the inside using FPV drone to identify possible Russian positions. In this case, everything's clear, but the video demonstrates the capabilities of the drones. This drone pilot is pretty amazing. Flying around outside, seeing things is one thing, but when you can fly in the building and then like be that careful and thread these needles between the doorways and that sort of thing, that's a lot of skill. And this is why the war has changed radically, because of the visual ability that the drone pilots provide to the battlefield. So, okay. Last little thing. I saw this and I was thinking that, that's how I feel right now. This is not AI generated. It's at a zoo where that little kid penguin is being introduced to bubbles for the first time. And he's flopping around like, whoa, what are these things? And so he's excited. That's how I was when I saw the news this morning. I was about like this little penguin. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.